Hey guys, it's Brad Sundberg. I'm continuing some conversations with some really close friends of mine. Today I'm really excited for those of you that don't know him, most of you do, but I'd like to introduce you to my very good friend, Brad Buxer, uh,
Hello.
based, I believe, in Nashville at this point, right?
Yep.
So, Buxer, good to see you as always.
Good to see you too.
Buxer's been, I call him Buxer. Buxer's done a bunch of events with me. Unfortunately, we can't do any in 2020 because it's such a weird, sucky year. But thank you for joining me.
Well, thanks for having me.
So I know all the stories, but I can't take that for granted. Tell me, when did your journey start with Michael when you joined the team?
I had just turned 31 years old. It was the summer of 1989, and Bill Bottrell calls me in to do a session at Westlake. And I came in there and I looked through the glass, and there was Michael with his hat on, and it was the only time I've ever been starstruck. I'd been playing in Stevie Wonder's band for 6 years. I'd been working on big records, Smokey Robinson, all the Motown people, and I was never starstruck and never thought one thing about it. I thought it's all kind of ridiculous, right? But with Michael, I was like starstruck. I was sort of floored. Walked into Westlake, sat down with my emulator 3 and started programming drums. And he was sitting across the console, and it was just Billy Bottrell, and I'm not sure who the assistant was, but it's 3 people, right? Plus an assistant. And we started the session, and immediately we just hit it off. He was smiling at me while I was doing the parts. If I'd make a mistake, he'd laugh. It was an instant bond.
So,
and
I'm sorry, but what does that mean? Was there already a song that they called you into play on, or what?
Yeah. I don't even remember what song it was. It was just he had his red Lynn drum machine. Remember that machine?
Yeah, we just talked about that with Forger.
Yeah, I never understood how that never got a scratch on it. It always looked brand new. But at any rate, so the Lynn was there, and then my emulator was there, and we just started working, and immediately we hit it off. I've never hit it off with anybody that quickly like that. And I kept getting called back for sessions and worked on the entire Dangerous album, and then got in his band and went on tour with them. And then the following year became his musical director. And then when the Dangerous tour was over, we started working up at the ranch on new stuff, and that was for history. While we were on tour with Dangerous in Moscow, I think in '93, he called me into his hotel room, right? And I had been working on the Sonic the Hedgehog cues. Mm-hmm. And I had, back then we used cassette players, right? So I had a cassette player under my arm. Right. With, I had 41 cues ready to play for him, right? And, Michael, he worked on like 2 of them. And then he said, you do it.
You got it.
So, and I worked on that with Forger for 4 weeks at record 1. But now we're on tour and still working with the cues, and I knocked on his hotel room door, and I said, do you want to hear the Sega stuff? And he goes, no. And he was pretty depressed, and there was an upright piano in the room, and he said, and it was 10:30 in the morning, he said, just start playing stuff. And so I just started playing stuff, and we had already done songs from scratch before, like, I don't know, Will You Be There, Heal the World, all this stuff so we were used to working together like that. And I just started playing stuff, and at one point I played the one of the cues from Sega that I'd written, right?
Yeah,
and but I played it differently. I played it more like a linear verse, right? Mm-hmm. Not like a cue in a video game.
Right.
But it's all the same notes and the same chords, and it's in E flat. That's Stranger Moscow, and he loved it, right? And he said, take it somewhere. So when I got done with the verse, I did a real simple, weird kind of modulation. When I was in Stevie's band, he always taught me that the least amount of notes that you have to move around to make the most psychological impact is how you want to do it, right?
Right.
It's like in a poem, fewer words are better if they're the right words, right? So I went to, it ends in A flat, which is a triad, which happens to be the major 3rd and the major 7th of an E major 7 chord, which is a wonderful modulation. Then I went to the 4 chord, which is an A. So we had the chorus, and then I just dropped it a whole step, D major 7 to G, and he loved it. Yeah. And so now we had a verse and a chorus, right?
So this was happening in Moscow, or this was later?
In Moscow.
Okay.
in his
So
hotel
this is
room.
this is one night in a hotel room.
One morning.
One morning, sorry.
One morning, yeah. The song was written between 10:30 in the morning and 12 noon, right? That morning, and he was pretty depressed, right? He was real. He wasn't happy, right?
Right.
And when we got the song done, he started getting very happy, right? And we spent the next half an hour. I'd say the verse and the chorus got written in the first half an hour. We spent the next half an hour trying to look for a bridge, right?
Right.
And it didn't need a bridge, so we couldn't find a bridge. And so basically the instrumental section of Stranger in Moscow is simply a verse. You know, it's the verse. I'm playing the high grand piano up on it. And at any rate, so, you know, at, I don't know, noon or either between noon and 12:30, we were done and I left, right? And we just put together a really good song, right? And so the tour went on, the tour got done, and now I'm back up at the ranch and we're working on stuff to get ready for the next album, for the History album.
Right.
And I started playing Stranger in Moscow on the piano, and he lit up.
Was it named Stranger at Moscow at that point, or was it just kind of like song number 88?
No, I remember we did the song on a given day on a morning, and the next day Karen Faye, Michael's makeup artist, came up to me and said, Michael tells me you guys just wrote the most beautiful song, right?
Right.
And I'm not sure when the actual title for Stranger in Moscow came into being. I don't remember. It's a long time ago.
And I mean, a lot of the songs have like working titles, but that one, especially during the project, that was always
it never had a working title.
Right,
but yeah, you know how crazy the titles were, like that.
Yeah. You
know, so just Hanson.
Yeah.
For the Way You Love Me, all that kind of stuff. No working title for this, and we started immediately working on Stranger in Moscow. You know, we're in a dance studio because he doesn't have a proper studio at Neverland.
Right.
And so there was an Akai 8-track, which is just a horrible digital recorder. Remember that?
Yeah.
You know, and so he beatboxed into it, right? And so I had a snippet of about 11 seconds of him beatboxing, right? And that's as far as we took it. So the next thing that happened is the album is starting, and he sends me to New York, and we started at Sony, not at Hit Factory, in Studio 3, I think.
Right.
And I never liked the sound of that studio that much, but
can I jump in there?
Yeah, sure.
So this is where you and I are back together again. I knew you from the Dangerous project.
Sure.
But then I hadn't seen you for a while. I think I came and saw you in Paris, but that might have been on the History tour. I think that was on the History tour when I came and saw you. But anyway,
okay.
So I got to New York before you did, and I was prepping Hit Factory and Sony. I was working with Ian Huckabee over at Sony.
Okay.
I thought you didn't start at Hit Factory. We started you at Sony.
Yeah. In other words, here's the thing. I brought Eddie Delana out there with me, right, for the engineer, and Matt tells me he was there too. But I just remember working with Eddie for that first month, and Matt must have been there, right, because he said he was there. But it was I never saw you out there, and we're at Sony just working on Stranger in Moscow. So what I did is I did all the drums. I took that beatbox snippet, chopped it up in the emulator, made tiny short sounds out of it, sequenced it in the MPC, and did the drum track that way. All those drums are his beatboxing.
Right.
Only the kick drum's a 909 kick with an 8th note delay, and there's some reinforcement on the 2 and 4, the snares further on the song. But basically, when you hear the song "Stranger in Moscow" start, you hear a beatbox. Right. That's all him beatboxing. The thing that's so great about his beatboxing is that it's a way for him to come up with a drum idea that is completely synchronized to the way he would dance. Right. So it's the most transparent, intuitive idea coming from him. It's almost like the way he dances is coming out of his mouth, and then I can turn that into a drum track. So now we have a drum track that is made for Michael's brain. It's just terrific. Yeah. You know, and so I take the beatbox, and it's a little bit out of time, and it's breathy and other stuff. Chop it up in the emulator, and then make each consonant, each syllable as short as possible, and spike it out, you know, make
Right.
it hurt. Michael used to say, you know, give me sounds that hurt,
Yeah.
right? Hurt, you know, like that hurt the ear.
Right.
Meaning no reverb, dry and in your face, short, percussive. And so I did that because I knew how to do that with him. And I made the drum track, but it's his idea, right? But
yeah.
we have a killer drum track for it now, and it's nice and simple, and it didn't come out of a drum machine, you know, it's organic. So did the drums and added the 909 kick with the 8th note delay, and then reinforced the 2 and 4 towards the end of the song so it gets stronger. And then laid down the piano part from top to bottom, and then did the strings. And the strings, the piano is all synthetic, and the strings are all synthetic. And that's the beauty of stuff like this. It's like, sometimes when you use stuff that's like real, like a grand piano, because you're trying to be so natural and organic, it's like, it's not the coolest thing. Yeah, sometimes it's cool not to do things conventionally. So on the piano stuff, I had a Kurzweil module with both sides panned like far left, an EMI module, both sides panned at the far right, which is totally wrong.
Right.
And then I had an MKS 20 in the middle, and we got this glorious grand piano sound.
Yeah.
And that's what's on the record. And and then and that's what's on the instrumental section. On the verses, you hear more of a Rhodes sound, right? There's different piano sounds. On the strings, it was the emulator, one of the string patches, which is very rough. It sounds horrible on its own, but when you mix in Gino Rich strings, is patch 22, and then on the D550, it was B14. And I remember all this stuff because I did it. And
I know
you got this beautiful orchestral string sound, right? And so I laid down all the strings on it, and now a month's gone by, right? And then Michael shows up, and he walks in, and he just shrieks when he hears it. He's so happy. And Eddie's sitting there, and Eddie doesn't. I'm not sure Eddie's ever seen him react like this, right? And but you can't Michael either likes something or he doesn't. It's like he's not going to like something to make you feel good. You know what I'm saying? If he doesn't like something, he'll get rid of you. Right. You know, he doesn't want any dead weight around. But so fell in love with it. And then you showed up, and this is the first time I remember seeing you in New York. And so like we're 4 weeks into it, and there you are, he's there, and now like a day or two later, you're there at the doorway, right? And he's not in the room at the time. Right. And so you're on the phone with Bruce Swedien, and you go, Bruce, when you hear this, you're going to melt. I'll never forget how you said that. Yeah. And we went from Sony over to Hit Factory at a certain point, right? And I was in Studio 3 over there. Right. And Bruce was in Studio 4. Yep. And you and Matt were everywhere, you know, and we were just working on different things. And for the History album, we worked on a million different tracks. And Stranger in Moscow was got developed over the months, right? Steve Porcaro came in, the Toto guys came in, Lukather put wonderful overdubs in portions of it, and it's just a classic track. It's I think the critics say it's one of the best tracks he's ever done. Well, they do say it's one of the best tracks he's ever done. Yeah. Rod Temperton said it's the best track he's ever done. Yeah. You know, so it's just a lovely, beautiful track. And very proud of that.
And not that my opinion carries any weight with anybody, but people ask me what my favorite MJ song is. And I'll say, you know, it's kind of a tie between two, but Human Nature and Stranger.
That's lovely. Thank you.
They're absolutely gorgeous songs.
So, I mean, the thing is Human Nature is just, it's magnificent. I remember the first time I ever heard that on the radio. It's like immediately you just flip out. Yeah. You know, it's just Steve Porcaro is a genius. And those sorts of songs are wonderful. Moscow, Human Nature, those are real songs, as opposed to, you know, like other types of songs I love in the closet, right? Yeah. But it's a whole different type of thing. This is these songs are not based on any you know, what's the trendiest thing at the moment, or what's, you know, they're not groove songs, they're just pure songs.
Yeah, it's a melody.
You know, so yeah.
All right, so back to Train Up just a little bit. You and I have spent countless hours in a studio, but a lot of people haven't. what was Michael like? Did he show up, in a limo with the whole entourage and champagne and butlers, or what was it like working
Well,
in the?
he showed up. They weren't limos, but they were nice vans, and he showed up with security.
Right.
There was no entourage, and Wayne Nagin was head of security then, and the security guys would be in the hallway, right, making everything secure, right.
Right.
Michael would show up at the Hit Factory every day at noon, right,
Mm-hmm.
and we'd work all day, and I would work with him in Studio 3, and Bruce was not working with him, but Bruce was in Studio 4. In other words, in Studio 3 is where we built the songs. Like, They Don't Care About Us. That's where we made the songs. And then once the songs were built, Michael would do vocals with Eddie Delana in Studio 3. And then when the songs were ready, like when Stranger in Moscow was ready, we bring it to Studio 4 and Bruce starts working on it. And like how it went, Michael would get so attached to the submixes, like he wouldn't let Bruce take apart the stems. You know what I'm saying? So it's like the beatbox stuff, Bruce was not able to, Michael wouldn't let him change the balances or anything like that. Yeah.
So what's interesting? I was just talking, I try not to give away the timeline of when I'm talking to you guys, but I was just talking to Forger, and we were talking about the Thriller album. And what you just described, Thriller, they were doing a lot of the production at Havenhurst, and then hauling tapes into Westlake and, redoing them or tightening them up a little bit. But yeah, he had kind of I think Bad and Dangerous were a little bit different in the way they were constructed, but it's interesting that you're right. History, there's some similarities to its construction back to Thriller.
And the different album projects, Michael acted different. For instance, he was very hands-on with History, right?
Yeah.
And then when we did Invincible, after we did History, we toured for History, right?
Yeah.
And in the middle of the History tour, me, Matt Forger, Matt Carpenter, who we used for Pro Tools then,
mm-hmm.
and Mick Kozowski, we went to Montreux, and we did Blood on the Dance Floor album, and we had a ball. It was fantastic. And Michael wasn't there with us in the studio every day, right? And what we had to do over there is Teddy Riley had done Blood on the Dance Floor. We had no multi-track for it. They lost the multi-track, and we didn't even have a DAT. We had one CD, and Michael's people are freaking out. How do we turn this into an album? So what I did is the CD's 44.1, 16-bit. It's the same spec as a DAT, which is terrible, but it was the best at the time, and it was good enough to get a reference point, right? So the four of us recreated the track. I replayed every single thing, but individually, right? So we could build a multi-track out of it.
Build it out.
And you can imagine what that was like with Michael's ears. He's not going to okay anything unless it's perfect. And so, but Mick Kozowski is so good, and Matt Forger and the crew was so good that each of us had our role. My role was to replay everything individually, right, and build a multi-track. Matt Carpenter's role was to help with Pro Tools, and Mick's role was to make this new multi-track into the same record that we had the reference on the CD. And so when Michael finally came in and heard it, it was ready and done, and he no changes were made, nothing was perfect. And the reason why he okayed it is because we knew that either it had to be perfect or it was a disaster. There's no well, it's close. It doesn't work like that with him. And it was perfect, and it was flawless, and it sounds, Blood on the Dance Floor on the record sounds absolutely as good as what that CD was, only it sounds better because we were able to take it to another level.
Right.
But Michael was reasonably hands-on over in Montreux, but not there every day. It was we did, we were working on Morphine, and then we're working together in a room. But it was where with History, he's there every day. In Montreux, he's not. And then when we finished do the second leg of the History tour, and now we're getting ready to do Invincible, right? And when we start the Invincible album at Criterion Studios, Troy Germano's studio in Florida,
Miami.
It's just me, Bruce, and Michael, and that was the closest relationship I've ever had with the two of them. That was the best album project I've ever done, and I've done 6 album projects. I've done Dangerous, History, Blood on the Dance Floor, Invincible, The Ultimate Collection, And then I wrote a song on the first album that was released after he died, right?
Right.
And the Invincible project, while the relationships were never better, Michael wasn't even really coming in to the studio, and he really wasn't hands-on. And we'd have meetings, me, Rodney Jerkins, Teddy Riley and stuff, and he was in a dark kind of place.
Right.
And we've talked about that, and I don't want to go too far into that, but he was completely not hands-on for that album. And in fact, he only wrote 2 songs on that whole album, you know. So the reason I'm mentioning this is because for each of the album projects I've worked on, there's been a different amount of involvement that he's had.
Right.
You know, History, he's hands-on every single day. Dangerous to some extent. Invincible, almost not at all. And Montreux, you know, just sort of hanging out, and there's not, you know, the Blood album, there wasn't that many new songs on it. It wasn't like a full album.
Yeah.
So, yeah, but he, what was it like to work with him? He's, he was like my best friend, and I also had a musical relationship with him. So it's the most intense relationship I've ever had in my life. And I was with him constantly, whether we were on tour or up at Neverland or working on the albums in New York. Yeah, I stayed with him for a year at the top of the Four Seasons. You remember that?
Yep.
It was, I had a suite up there. There was Michael, the kids, there was Grace and security. We had the whole 34th floor of the Four Seasons, and they wanted us to leave. They were tired of us. You know, they were here. too much maintenance. But he was the most fun to work with on the planet, and we had a musical relationship that was it was so perfect. It was insane. That's why I worked with him for 20 years.
Yeah.
Or however. Yeah. That he's the closest relationship I've ever had.
Right. And one of the things that you know, we kind of keep circling back on when I talk to you guys, you know, those of us that were with him, these friendships are real. And Michael,
oh my God,
Michael loved you. Michael absolutely loved you.
I know he did.
And
yeah. And you too, and Forger.
Yeah, and they're you know, I said this, you know, I hope I'm not repeating myself for people that are watching, you know, this series, but it was a good group of guys, and Michael's
oh my God,
help of good people. It wasn't
a bunch
of backstabbing lunatics, and we're still friends. I mean, after all these,
dude, we're great friends. Every time
you and I met,
I love it.
Yeah, you and I met during the Dangerous project with Bottrell.
Yeah,
and I don't want to say that we don't talk, you know, every day, but we pick up immediately where we left off, and you're amazing. So
well, so are you.
Thank you. What, you know, I hate catchphrases, but what's a takeaway? You know, when you look at this time you spent with this guy,
I'll tell you what
take away.
What it is. It's like sometimes in your life you have an experience with, maybe you're married to somebody and it's the best years of your life. Maybe it's a career that's the high point of your life. For me, it's like I'll never have an experience like that again with anyone. You know, music is the most wonderful thing to do, and when you're doing it with the biggest artists in the world, and then you happen to have this unbelievable natural connection, it doesn't get any better than that. And he, you know, he would call me constantly, and we talk about everything. And when we would start out a song, there would never be any premise like, oh, Brad, let's do a ballad, or I have this concept. There was none of that. There was no heaviness at all. It's like, play something. Yeah. Or he'd say, I got an idea. And we would never talk about the direction to take it or anything. It just whatever it came out to be, it came out to be. And that's the best way to work. There's no rules whatsoever. Right. None. And with other people, you know, Rodney would do a track and Michael would come in and sing on it. With the tracks I did with Michael, we'd start the tracks from scratch. And so you're hearing his actual craftsmanship. You know, he's sitting at the keyboard with me, like when we're doing in the back, and doing percussion sounds on the keyboard. He's right there next to me, you know, and they don't care about us the same thing. We would, day after day after day, he's sitting right next to me, and will you be there? Same thing. You know, we started from scratch. He's sitting at the piano with me. He's standing up right next to me. I'm playing the grand piano. We're coming up with Will You Be There? And I do the percussion with Bart that one day, and then we put it together and we're crafting it. And it's you know, I dream about him. He was such an incredibly
What does that mean? You dream about him?
in other words, when you're with somebody 24/7 for like 20 years, literally, I was either on tour with him, in the studio with him, or up at Neverland, or we'd be somewhere in the world working on tracks out of hotel rooms.
Right.
I was with him constantly, and I didn't have a life outside of that. That
right.
was my life, and that was his life, and it was unbelievably rich and wonderful. And so when I say I dream about, you know, if you have a best friend, it's a part of you.
Right.
You know, it's like huge life experiences that you've had over those 20 years, and you've had so many of them, and it's like you know, and it's not that you get so sad about it, it's that you rejoice that you once lived. You know, does that make sense?
I love
it's
that.
like, yeah.
Whenever we do, you know, normally I'd be in LA right now, and you'd probably be sitting next to me. You know, we do the June 25th, and you know, it's a hard date for a lot of you know, for a lot of MJ fans, but I don't dwell on the passing. I'm more, you know, let's celebrate this guy. You know,
celebrate what the unbelievably amazing experience was.
Yeah. So, yeah. And you're right. You can't. It's hard to, and that's why I sometimes ask rhetorically dumb questions, because people are just curious. You know, how do you describe what it's like, not just to be in the studio with them, but to really have that close.
I think it's a great question. I remember. Do you remember in early '92, we went up to the ranch, or I don't know when it was, but maybe it was like 90. I don't know. But it was the start of the Dangerous album. And you were up there. Matt Forger was up there. I was up there. Remember John Barnes came there?
Oh, yeah.
6 hours late. We all got there at like 10 or 11. John Barnes shows up at 4 p.m. Yeah. But, yeah, I mean, it was, yeah, it was wonderful. It was wonderful.
Awesome. Any final thoughts?
Just I want to say to who's ever listening to this, that he was the nicest, sweetest, most wonderful person I've ever met in my life, and I love him insanely. And he gave me the best experience of my entire life. And I say to you, Michael, I hope you're hearing this. I love you so much, and thank you for what you've given me, and everyone else. Thank you for what he's provided everyone.
Awesome.
And what he's given everybody. So
Buxer has this very comfortable trait that I really like. American guys, you know, we're supposed to be all like, I hate the word macho, that's stupid. But a lot of American guys are not comfortable with the word love, or, you know, saying I love you. Buxer, I mean, I'm trying to think early on in our friendship, you're just very comfortable saying I love you. And I think that's amazing.
Well, that Michael was about that. Remember that?
Right.
Michael was about that. So we were the core people around Michael. So, and you and me always got along great. And Forger and all the core people did. You know, I love Bruce Sweeney.
Yeah.
And Michael Prince and everyone. You know what I'm saying? So it was easy, and it wasn't overdone. It was
right.
Like it was just what it was. You know, but
well, to draw a really dumb parallel, it's almost, you know, it's like the Hawaiian thing, aloha, you know, where it means, you know, I love you. I enjoy our friendship. An American.
That's the great way to, yeah. Absolutely.
So I love you, Buxer. I
love you too, Sunberg.
And I'm happy you did this with us. I think it's going to mean a lot to people. 2021, let's get past all this nonsense. And I'm hoping to do something. It might be called the reunion tour or something, but we're going to get everybody back together, back into big studios where we should be.
Yeah.
For now we have to stare at computers, and
right.
But it's great seeing you. I'm glad you're healthy and doing well. Yeah. And I love you, and can't wait to see you in person soon.
Love you too, Sunberg. Thanks.